The wind howled like a wounded beast outside the cabin walls, slamming against the logs with the fury of a thing alive. Snow came sideways, thick and fast, coating the porch in a white so deep it swallowed the world whole. Inside, Nora McCrae sat by the fire, rifle across her knees and kettle hissing on the hearth. Her cabin creaked and groaned with every gust, but it held steady, more than she could say for most things in her life lately. She'd gotten used to the quiet, the kind that settles in your bones, hangs in the corners like cobwebs. Her husband had died just short of spring. Fever, fast and mean, left her with 3 chickens, 2 mules, and a silence that wouldn't quit. The neighbors came by at first, words of pity, pies in hand. But even they'd stopped once summer gave way to cold again. Folks had a way of drifting when death lingered too long in one place. That's why the knock nearly made her drop the kettle. Not a real knock, more like a dull thump, as if something or someone had hit the door and slumped against it. She stood, heart kicking at her ribs. The rifle came up instinctively. She edged toward the door, breath shallow, boots whispering against the floorboards. Another thump, heavier this time. She yanked the door open, and the wind screamed in, clawing her face, blinding her with snow. But through the flurry, she saw him, a man, slumped forward, coated in ice. His hat gone, coat torn, face bloodied. He sagged against the threshold, unconscious, or nearly. She hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then she slung the rifle over her back, gritted her teeth, and grabbed him by the collar. It took everything she had to drag him over the threshold and slammed the door shut again. He hit the floor like a dropped sack of grain, groaning faintly. His skin was near blue, breath shallow. A long gash cut across his temple, crusted dark with half-frozen blood. Snow melted in puddles around him. "God Almighty," she muttered. "What the hell happened to you?" She didn't ask if he was dangerous. Didn't have time for that. His boots were cracked open from cold, his fingers stiff, and that gash wasn't a close itself. She hauled him closer to the fire, peeled off his coat, then his boots. Every motion careful, mechanical. A lifetime ago, she'd nursed her father through a broken leg, her husband through fever. This was no different. At least, that's what she told herself. He stirred when she poured whiskey over the wound on his head. Flinched, eyes fluttered open. Pale blue, confused. "You'll live," she said flatly, dabbing at the blood. "If you don't freeze to death first." He tried to speak. Cough. Managed a horse. Water. She brought it. He drank like a man starved, then slumped back again. "Don't die," she said, almost as an order. "I am not digging another grave this year." She patched him up with what she had. Clean cloth, a boiled needle, her best guess. Once the bleeding stopped, she pulled the extra cot from the back wall and wrestled his limp form onto it. He didn't wake again, just mumbled in his sleep. Names. Maybe. Please. She didn't listen too hard. Instead, she sat back down by the fire, watching the storm chew at the world outside. The man snored softly behind her. He hadn't had a weapon on him. No badge either. No sign of who he was, where he'd come from, or what sort of trouble he'd left behind him in that storm. But her gut said he wasn't here by chance. Snow hammered the roof. And something about the way he'd collapsed, not like a wanderer caught off guard, but like a man running from something, gnawed at her spine. By morning, the blizzard hadn't relented. The man was still breathing, still unconscious. Nora fed the fire, fed the chickens, chopped a little wood with hands so cold they barely closed around the axe handle. She checked on him after. His fever had broken. Color was returning to his cheeks. His lips moved, whispering something she couldn't make out. There was a knock at the door. This time it was sharp, intentional. Nora froze, rifle in hand. She moved to the door and opened it 2 inches. 3 men stood outside. Snow crusted their coats and hats, but their eyes were sharp. Sheriff Tom Bridger, and 2 others from town, Clay Dobbs and Morty Griggs, all carrying suspicion like it was sewn into their vests. "Mornin', Miss McCrae," Bridger said. "Heard you had company." Nora's stomach clenched. "You heard wrong." Clay leaned to the side, peering into the cabin through the gap. His gaze landed on the cot on the man sleeping there. "Looks like a man in your bed to me," he said with a smirk. "He's not in my bed," she snapped. "He's on the cot. I found him in the storm last night. Barely alive." Bridger didn't look like he cared for the nuance. "This ain't about where he's sleeping, ma'am. You're a widow, alone. A man spend the night under your roof. Well, folks are going to talk. Let them talk. You know how this town is." Morty chimed in. "A woman and a man, unsupervised under one roof, ain't proper. I save his life." "And you might have just married him in the process," Bridger said, not unkindly. "Unless you want the whole territory calling you a loose woman. Best to make it official." Nora stared at them, jaw tight. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I didn't want this." Bridger sighed. "Doesn't matter. Not here. Not now. We'll bring the preacher tomorrow." Nora glanced back at the stranger, still unconscious, oblivious. "Don't I get a say?" "You did," Bridger said, tipping his hat, "when you opened that door and let him in." They left her in silence. The storm had stopped by then. Sunlight broke through the gray, cold and pitiless. Nora sat back down by the fire. The man shifted in his sleep. His lips parted. A name slipped out, soft and broken. "Elias." She stared at him. This man, Elias, if that was truly his name, was a stranger, dropped into her life by a twist of snow and fate. But now the town had spoken, and so had the rules she never wrote. And tomorrow, if she didn't run or fight, she'd be somebody's wife again. The fire cracked. She didn't know yet whether she'd saved a man or brought a wolf into her home. But either way, the story had begun. Elias Thorne woke with a gasp, sitting bolt upright on the cot as if something had yanked him out of a drowning dream. The room spun, and his hand flew to his bandaged side. His breath came ragged, uneven. Firelight flickered across wooden walls. The smell of ash, stew, and old pine filled the room. Then he saw her, the woman, dark hair braided tight, sleeves rolled up, rifle within reach. She was stirring something in a pot, not sparing him more than a glance. "You're awake," she said. "Barely," he rasped. "Feels like I got trampled by a train. Storm nearly killed you. Gash on your head. Fever. Lost blood. You'll live." "Lucky me." He tried to shift his legs off the cot, grimaced. "Where am I?" "My cabin. You collapsed on my porch in the middle of the blizzard." Elias studied her. Sharp eyes. Not young, not old. Pretty, but in a way the frontier respected, weathered, strong. The kind of woman who didn't flinch at blood or snow. "You dragged me in?" he asked. "I did." "Why?" She met his gaze. "Because I'm not the kind of woman who lets men freeze to death outside my door, even when they're trouble." He smirked. "And you think I'm trouble?" "I know it." He let out a soft laugh, then winced. "You're not wrong." Before he could ask more, the door swung open. Sheriff Bridger stepped inside, hat in hand, followed by a town elder and an old preacher with a crooked cross hanging from his neck. Behind them, a young boy peeked in wide-eyed. Elias stiffened. "What's this?" Nora didn't answer. Her jaw was tight. Bridger cleared his throat. "Mr. Thorne, is it?" Elias nodded slowly. "You spent the night here in Miss McCrae's home. She's a widow. That makes this a matter of public concern." Elias blinked. "Public concern?" The preacher stepped forward. "It's improper, son. A man and woman sharing a roof. Alone. Folks talk. To prevent scandal. The good people of this town feel it's best you be wed." Elias turned to Nora, eyebrows raised. "Is this some kind of joke?" "I wish it was," she muttered. Elias looked at the sheriff. "I didn't consent to that. I don't even know this woman's middle name." Bridger gave him a tight smile. "Neither of you chose the storm. But choices were made, and now consequences follow. Unless you want her reputation destroyed, you'll do what's right." He tried to stand. Couldn't. Nora didn't move from the stove. Her voice was calm, but flat. "Don't bother arguing. This is how the town works. I saved your life, and now I'm supposed to marry you for it." Elias studied her face. She wasn't weeping, begging, or even nervous. Just cold, like the snow outside hadn't melted from her bones yet. The preacher opened his book. Now, wait a damn second. Elias started. Do you object? Bridger asked. Because if you do, we'll have to take this to the town council. Public hearing. Might jail you for impropriety. And she won't come out clean, either. Elias closed his mouth. The preacher's voice rose. Do you, Elias Thorne, take Nora McCrae as your lawful wedded wife, to protect her name and shelter her from public shame? There was a long silence. Then Elias muttered, held a proposal, and nodded. I do. The preacher turned to her. Do you, Nora McCrae, take this man? I do, she said. Quick, sharp. The preacher said something about God, hardship, and union, and then it was done. Bridger clapped Elias on the shoulder. Congratulations, son. The door shut behind them. They were alone again. Nora ladled stew into a bowl and placed it beside the cot. Elias stared at it, then at her. Well, he said dryly, I think that's the strangest wedding I've ever had. And I've had two. Her eyes narrowed. Not funny. Didn't say it was. They stared at each other for a long moment. Fire popping, wind creaking along the walls. Finally, she turned away. Eat. You need it. He picked up the spoon. His hand trembled from weakness. You could have said no, she said quietly. I thought about it. But then I looked at you. You weren't asking for help. You were bracing for impact. I respect that. She didn't reply, just kept stacking firewood near the hearth. As days passed, the cabin settled into a rhythm again, but now with two inside it. Elias healed slowly. He helped where he could, chopped with one-handed, cleaned the rifle, tried and failed to milk a goat. Nora caught him cursing at it and laughed once, dry and sharp like breaking ice. At night, they slept at opposite ends of the room. No shared glances, no warm touches. But the silence between them changed. Less like a blade, more like a question waiting to be answered. He asked her about the town. She told him nothing he hadn't guessed already. Small, judgmental, built more on gossip than bricks. You don't seem to like them, he noted. I don't, she replied. But I was born here, buried my husband here. I've got nowhere else to be. One evening, he found her outside splitting kindling. Her sleeves were rolled, hands red from cold. She didn't ask for help, but he took the axe from her anyway. Let me, he said. You're tired. I'm fine. I know, but let me anyway. She didn't argue. Later, while she boiled beans and he sat by the fire mending his coat, he asked, Do you regret it? She didn't have to ask what he meant. I regret the town, she said. I regret the people. I don't regret saving your life. Elias didn't say anything, but something in his chest shifted. That night, she fell asleep in the chair near the fire. He watched her for a long time, not with hunger, not with pity, just curiosity, like he was reading the first page of a book someone tried to burn. Morning came with quiet snow and a brittle sun. She was outside feeding the chickens when he found the coat. His coat, inside the inner pocket, folded tight and tucked behind the lining, was a sheet of paper, a wanted poster. Elias Thorne, for robbery, desertion, and suspicion of murder. $500 reward. Dead or alive. Nora stared at it, jaw clenched, as the chickens clucked and pecked at her boots. The poster trembled in her hand. She didn't know yet what he'd done, or if it was true, but the town had pushed them together. The storm had delivered him to her porch, and now fate had given her something else. A husband with a price on his head. Elias was outside splitting wood when he noticed her watching him from a window. Nora's eyes weren't cold this time. They were calculating, quiet and sharp like the edge of a whetstone. She disappeared from the window a moment later, but he knew. She'd found the poster. Inside the cabin, she didn't speak right away, just stirred the pot on the stove with slow, precise motions. The smell of rabbit stew filled the space, but the warmth of it didn't reach the silence hanging between them. He closed the door behind him, shook the snow from his coat, and faced her. You found it. She didn't turn. Didn't think to mention your name stapled to a reward. He exhaled. Wasn't planning on staying long enough for it to matter. That's not an answer. Elias moved closer, leaning against the table. The poster's real. The charges aren't. Not all of them. She looked at him then. Which ones are? He met her gaze, steady. I didn't kill anyone in cold blood. I didn't rob anyone who didn't deserve it. And I sure as hell didn't desert a war I never signed up for in the first place. She said nothing. I was a bounty hunter, he continued. Got double-crossed on a job down near Wichita. My partner pinned everything on me and vanished. Town bought his version. I ran. Why? Because folks don't wait around for explanations, especially not when there's money involved. Nora crossed her arms. And now, I figure if I keep moving, maybe the truth catches up. She tilted her head. You're a fast talker, Elias Thorne. I've had practice. He moved toward the fire, held out his hands to the heat. You gonna turn me in? She didn't answer. He glanced back. I wouldn't blame you. $500 buys a lot of silence. She studied him a long time. If I was gonna turn you in, I would have done it already. He nodded slowly. Then I guess I owe you. You already do. They ate in silence that night. Snow fell soft outside the windows. The cabin felt smaller somehow, like the walls were listening. Neither spoke of the poster again, but the air had changed. Lighter in some places, heavier in others. Over the next few days, they settled into something resembling rhythm. He helped more. She let him. The goats got milk without curses. The woodpile grew. The silence between them became companionable. Once, she caught him watching her while she brushed snow off the roof. He didn't look away, just smiled that half-cocked grin of his. You ever think about leaving this place? All the time, she replied. But where would I go? He didn't answer, just looked at the mountains in the distance like he was measuring escape. The thaw came quicker than expected. Sunlight melted the icicles off the eaves, and the trail leading to town reappeared beneath weeks of frost and hoofprints. They both heard the horses before they saw them. 3 riders, dark coats, long rifles strapped to their saddles. Elias stiffened at the window. He muttered something low, something she couldn't quite hear. When she looked at his face, the expression there chilled her more than any snowstorm. You know them, she said. One of M. Friend, used to be. He grabbed his pistol and loaded it with hands too steady for this to be the first time. You need to hide, she said. He shook his head. That won't help. The riders approached slow, deliberate, not rushing, not cautious either, like they owned the path they rode. Elias stood just outside the door, gun at his hip. Nora stayed just inside, behind the frame, rifle in hand. The lead rider pulled his horse to a stop and lifted his chin. His beard was shot with gray, and a deep scar curved beneath one eye. He grinned when he saw Elias. Well, I'll be. You're a hard man to track, Eli. Didn't know I was sending invitations, Elias replied. The man dismounted, eyes scanning the cabin. Nice place. Cozy. Didn't figure you for domestic life. Didn't figure you for the bounty-chasing type. The man laughed. Oh, I'm not. But 500's 500. I didn't do what they said, Micah. Sure, Micah said, but you always were the better liar. One of the others spit into the snow. The third man cocked his rifle. A warning. You planning to shoot me out here in front of my wife? Elias asked. Micah's eyebrows lifted. Wife! She saved my life. That's so. He turned to Nora. Ma'am, no offense, but you married yourself a dead man. Nora stepped out then, rifle leveled. I'm not fond of threats. Or strangers. Micah's smirk faded slightly. You're welcome to turn around, she added, before someone gets shot. Brave little thing, he muttered. I'm not little, and I shoot straighter than I look. Micah glanced back at Elias. She's got grit. Shame to waste it. You want me, Elias said. You take me. Leave her out of it. Micah shrugged. Can't promise that. He gave a signal. The rifles lifted. Elias moved without thinking. shoving Nora back into the doorway just as a shot cracked through the air and shattered the porch beam above her head. She hit the ground hard, gun clattering beside her. Elias fired once, twice. One shot grazing the side of Micah's coat, the second slamming into the shoulder of the man on the right. He howled, dropped his weapon. Nora scrambled to her feet, grabbed the rifle, and shot without aiming. The man on the left reeled back, blood blooming on his chest. His horse bolted. Micah dove behind a tree. Elias ducked back into the cabin. Another shot rang out, shattering the window. Glass sprayed the floor. Inside, they crouched behind a table, breath ragged, hearts pounding. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded, chest heaving. "You?" Still breathing. She looked at him. "You dragged me out of the way." He smiled faintly. "Can't have them ruining your wedding dress." She laughed. "Just once." Harsh and breathless. A pause stretched between them, heavy with gun smoke and unsaid things. Footsteps outside, one rider fleeing, hooves thundering into the trees. Micah didn't follow. They waited, guns ready, breath held. But there was nothing more. Finally, Elias stood, cautiously stepped outside. Micah was gone. Nora followed him into the snow. The yard was stained with blood and broken hoof prints. The silence left behind felt wrong. "Hollow, will he be back?" she asked. Elias didn't answer right away. Then, "Yes." She looked at him, rifle resting against her shoulder, wind catching her braid. "We could run," he said, "or we could finish it." The sun slid lower in the sky, painting everything gold and cold. He looked at her, not the woman who found him bleeding, not the stranger he married out of survival, but the one who stood beside him, rifle in hand, defiant and unafraid. His voice was quiet. "You sure?" She didn't blink. "You're mine now, Elias Thorne, and I don't share." He laughed, warm despite the bruises on his ribs. "Guess I picked the right woman to freeze in front of." Behind them, smoke curled from the cabin's chimney, curling into a sky that was no longer quiet. Something had begun, and the storm, it seemed, was only just gathering. The cabin felt too small for silence that thick. Elias stood near the window, a revolver resting loosely in his hand. His wounded shoulder was bandaged tight, but blood had already soaked through again. Nora worked fast, setting traps in the snow outside, hammering metal teeth into frozen ground. The sky was a shade of bruised gold, clouds dragging low like the breath before thunder. "They'll come back tonight," she said when she stepped inside, brushing snow from her sleeves. Micah ain't the type to take a loss and sleep on it. Elias didn't look at her. "No, he won't." She moved past him, loading the rifle with methodical grace. "We could still run." "I don't run," he said softly. Nora met his eyes. "You did before." "That was before you." She blinked, like she hadn't expected that, then nodded once and didn't look away. "Good." He walked to her slowly, took the rifle from her hands, checked the sights, then handed it back. "First time I ever saw you," he said. "You had your sleeves rolled and a fire in your eyes like you'd fought God and won." She huffed. "I was dragging your half-dead body out of a snowstorm, and I was already in love." That made her pause, but only for a breath. "Don't go saying things like that," she murmured. "You might not live long enough to prove it." The wind outside shifted, low and mean. A twig snapped out near the trees. They froze. Elias stepped back from the window, lips drawn tight. "It's time." Nora didn't flinch. She lit the second lantern and placed it near the doorway. Then the third, low, by the woodpile, right where the trap lay hidden. The light would draw them in. The trap would do the rest. "You take the back," Elias said. "I'll wait here. If they breach, you flank them." She didn't argue. Outside, the world had narrowed to breath in snow and gunmetal. The first crack of gunfire came sharp, too close. A bullet punched through the cabin wall, splintering what beside Nora's head. Elias fired back instantly, hitting one of the lanterns and plunging the porch into shadow. He moved like someone who danced his dance before, efficient, merciless. Nora crept to a back door and slipped behind a stack of logs they'd placed days ago. Micah's voice echoed from the trees. "Eli, come out and die clean." Another gunshot followed. Missed by inches. Nora spotted movement and didn't wait. She fired once, heard a grunt, then silence. One down. Elias kicked the door open and stepped onto the porch just as another shot rang out. He dove left, rolled behind a barrel, fired twice. His bullet caught one man in the thigh. The other took a shot that slammed Elias back into the railing. Nora's scream was wordless fury. She bolted from cover and fired at the man standing over Elias. The rifle cracked and the man folded. Micah came out of the trees, calm as death. He didn't raise his weapon right away. Just looked at her, eyes narrow, voice low. "You married a liar, lady. He left men to die. He betrayed the badge." "He's not the only one with a gun," she said. Micah smirked. "Won't matter. I'll put him down. And if you get in my way, I'll put you down too. I'd like to see you try." She lifted the rifle. Micah raised his. The two shots rang out at once. Only one man stayed standing. Micah dropped to his knees, blood dark on his chest, shock written plain across his face. He fell sideways into the snow, breath leaving him in a cloud. Elias groaned from the porch. She ran to him. His shoulder was worse, but not fatal. "You all right?" she asked, voice trembling. "I think so. Did you get him?" She nodded. "Yeah." He looked at her like she was something holy. "You saved me. I've got a habit." They didn't speak for a long time after that. Just sat together on the porch as the snow fell again, soft this time, like the sky had nothing left to fight with. In the morning, they buried the dead behind the cabin. No words, just earth and wind and resolve. Inside, Elias sat by the fire, shirt off, stitches raw across his skin. Nora knelt beside him, wiping blood from his brow. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I know, but I'm not sorry." He reached for her hand, held it like it was the only thing tethering him to the ground. "You married a wanted man, Nora McCrae." She smiled, slow and dangerous. "No, I married the only man dumb enough to bleed all over my floor twice and still make me want to kiss him." Elias laughed, then winced. "Don't make me laugh. It hurts too much." She leaned forward, kissed his forehead. "I'll take care of you." He looked up at her. "No," he said. "We take care of each other." Outside, the wind quieted. The storm was over. But something had taken root inside that cabin, stronger than the snow, the blood, or the law. They didn't ask for fire, but they chose to stand in it together.